Alright, so what we're going to do here is we're going to do a demonstration of how combat works in Journey. So what we're doing here is a scene in which our two heroes, Elisif and Scully, have reached the end of maybe a dungeon or maybe just a period of the story, and they've come up against this bad guy who looks like the guy on the front cover of the book. And what we're going to do is I'm going to go through all the characters and kind of show you what they look like, or not what they look like, show you what they what they're like, who they are, and kind of explain how I created the characters. Which is a very simple and easy process. So we'll go with the simplest first, we'll go with Scully. But here's Scully the boar. So the first thing to look at, really, to determine what the character's like is the high concept. So he's a boorish brute with the strength and manners of his namesake. So you can tell he's probably sort of a kind of barbaric or grumpy sort of melee fighter maybe. He has high brawn, middling dexterity, low intellect, and middling perception. So we know that he sort of fits the bill of your classic kind of tough fighter guy. He is petrified of heights, however, and he wants to die a warrior's death. His trait is that he's quick to anger and quicker to anger others. So I guess you can sort of tell that he tends to butt heads against people, and he and his colleagues may not always get on. His wound limit is 7. He does not have any current lasting effects, but he does have an axe, some armor, which normally you'd go into what armor he has, but for this I just made him quickly and didn't bother. He has some mead, he has a Thor pendant, and his father's glove, which is an item from his backstory. He also has a wound limit of 7, and that's the character. He has +2 attack bonus, which is just his brawn, because he's using an axe, and a defensive value of 6 because it's 5 plus your dexterity plus your armor. Okay, Elisif Hardrina. She's completely different. She is a young hag, feared and revered. So she's obviously a magic user of some kind, and you know, hags kind of have that bad stigma, but in this world, maybe not so bad. She's petrified of small spaces. And she wants knowledge of the West, so eventually she wants to sail west and find out sort of the secrets of that landmass. And her trait is that she stops at nothing and for no one. She is weak and middling dexterity. She is intelligent though her perception is quite low. She carries knucklebones, armor, and 3 daggers with her, which I assume are sacrificial. She only has a -1 attack value with melee though, and has no ranged weapons, and a defensive value of 6 because of her armor. So that's our 2 good guys. So if you're creating a character, that's all you really need to do, in addition to a backstory and that sort of thing. And now let's look at the final, Yorick the Draugr. I've put a little M here because when I like to run Journey, I like to have M's next to them if I know they can do magic. So obviously the player, we know Elisif can do magic, and her player would know and wouldn't need to remember, but we know that Yorick the Draugr is able to do magic. I haven't actually filled in his attack and defense value because I forgot. So I'll do that in a sec. We know that he's weak. He is very fast though, and very clever. With middling perception. He has a 10 wound limit, much higher than either of the players, but we know but they're together against him. His high concept is that he's the undead ruler of Bjarksborg, or Bjarksbjorg. He is petrified of dying, and his goal is to live forever and raid into oblivion. And his trait is he likes to taunt people. Now, sometimes you might make your monsters with abilities, so he has 3. So he has Mist Form, which, again, I just made these up on the spot, thinking about what sort of thing that character would have. So he has Mist Form, which makes him invulnerable for a round. He has Petrify, which casts a fear effect, and has a difficulty of 6, which I'll get into, and he has a witch mark, which reduces the dexterity. So I'm going to put that down there and just get ready to play. Okay, just before we start, one other thing I wanted to point out is that with Yorick, with the players actually, when you're doing the stats, you have 8 points to use, whereas for monsters you can make it up to whatever makes sense and whatever is a good challenge for your party, so you can do whatever you want. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is roll initiative. So let's roll initiative for each of the players, and we'll just kind of put them in order of who goes first. So for Elisif, that's a 2. So we'll just put that here. Scully, that's a 10. And Yorick, that's an 8. So I'm not going to go as cinematic with this, just because I'm trying to sort of show off the mechanics. But here we go. So Scully's up first. He's going to step forward with his axe and try and smash Yorick the Draugr. So we roll 7 plus his attack value of 2, so that's a 9 total. Beats the defensive value of Yorick the Draugr, who gets 1 wound. Next, Elisif. She's going to cast a spell. So the way this works is she says to the GM, she says, "Okay, I would like to use magic. I would like to cast a fireball at Yorick the Draugr." So the GM thinks, okay, that spell, you've cast a few of them before, you know, but you are low level, so we'll say that's got a difficulty of 5. So she rolls to see if she casts it, plus her intellect of +1, so that she makes a 5, because she rolled a 4 + 1, so that's a 5, and now she has to see if it hits the defense. So it misses. So she's able to create the fireball, but the fireball goes wide. Next, Yorick the Draugr. He is also going to use magic, but he's going to use an ice spell and try and freeze Scully the Boar in place. So he rolls a 2, plus his intellect is 5, which is not enough to cast that spell. And the way you determine that is looking at the charts. So the GM needs to look at the charts provided based on the level and say, okay, what word would I use to describe this? Very easy, easy, trivial, medium, tricky, hard, very hard, or impossible. So the GM says, okay, this sounds like a tricky spell because it's quite a powerful effect to freeze someone in place. So you need to roll a 9 to get tricky. And he rolled less than that. So he's unable to do so. So, Scully's turn again. This time, he is just going to swing with his axe again. Okay, that's an 8 for a total of 10. That's a hit. So, Yorick takes another wound. Elisif. Actually, she shouldn't have gone first. I already messed up. Yorick should have gone in between them, so he can go now. So, he is going to use his Petrify effect on Scully. Now, depending on... It's up to the GM's permission, or decisions and all that kind of thing. But for me, this Petrify effect has no bearing on the person. So, as in, there are no stats that modify this. So he has to beat, or hit or beat a 6 or above, to save against it, without any modifiers. So it's a 50-50 chance. So, he rolled a 3. So, he is scared. And which means he starts backing away and has the current effect, afraid. So he gains a negative to his attacks and such. But at the moment he's just backing away. Okay, so let's skip ahead a bit, because if we're doing a full combat, this will be a half-hour video, especially with quite a hard enemy like this. So let's say during it, Yorick uses Witch Mark on Elisif, which gives her -1 dexterity. So we'll just write that here. But also, the Witch Mark has a lasting effect. So we just write Witch Mark here. And what that effect is that it's a -1 dex, and she is cursed for the foreseeable future until she can remove it. And so this lasts beyond the combat, lasts beyond, however many sessions it takes for her to cure it. But essentially what it means is in this world, if she's cursed, people will shun her, and bad things will happen to her, and monsters will follow her. So it's a pretty big deal, actually. And in the game, this is a combat from a game I ran, and one of the players got cursed, and that meant that that provided lots of encounters and ended up with some of the party nearly dying and that sort of thing in the future. And that was really the point of this encounter, was to have someone be cursed to provide motivation to go to the next town, whereupon the story continued. So, it worked pretty well. But that's just kind of a very simple introduction to the world of Journey combat. And from there, they can get different weapons and abilities and that kind of thing as they go up. And it's really open-ended to do what you want with. But I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you find this useful. And thank you for watching.